Hey, One Stop Co-op Shop fans, this is Mike, and today we're looking at Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon from Awakened Realms. This game's an epic campaign adventure game, sort of like a mix of Seventh Continent and Choose Your Own Adventure with card-based combat and a lot of cool stuff that I'm really enjoying. Today we're going to go through a quick partial playthrough of the first chapter in the game, and I say partial playthrough because I want to show you all the core mechanics of the game, but not ruin too much of the story, because this is really one you want to experience. I'm going to be playing with two characters so you can kind of see how co-op works. And if you want to hear my thoughts on the game, check out my review video, which should be posted at the same time. And disclaimer, as always, this is a review copy that Awakened Realms sent us. So first, to set up the game, you put together each of your characters. So here I have Beor, the Smith, and you see you have a nice little story here, and each character also gets their own individual letter from one of their mentors. You have their starting attributes, which are marked by these red cubes here. So Beor is very good at physical stuff. This is all the stuff used in combat on the left side here, and pretty terrible at diplomacy. He only has a single cube in caution. Then additionally, he has some starting resources, 3 food and 1 wealth, which are marked with the exact same cubes in the little resource things down here. And the other side of the character's card stays here in its place. And do note that this big board is matched to Beor's color, because this is the suggested board he uses. If you play with the free play variant, you can mix and match these among characters, but we're going to stick with the standard right now. So Beor's got a special ability. He can spend 4 energy to craft some items, so he can use his smithing abilities when he's in a settlement to get more stuff for himself. And then each character starts on their starting levels for Terror, which is 0. You'll see the little arrows there to show that. Energy, which is 6, and that's your main statistic to let you do stuff during the game. And then finally, Health will start out at 9 for Beor. And you'll see this health marker has little things going to the side. That's because whichever level it's on, that's the maximum of your energy. So if you're really injured, you aren't going to be that running around and doing that much. And then also, if your terror gets above your health level, then you are panicked. And that's going to make it really hard for you to be effective in combat or diplomacy or much of anything. Our second character today is Maggot, much better at the diplomacy stuff, especially spirituality, because he is a former druid, but also decent at combat, so certainly more balanced than Beor. He can gain magic as an action, which is pretty great, because magic can be a tough commodity to find sometimes. And he's starting with some food and some magic. And his health is nearly as high as Beor, same amount of energy, 6, and also starts at 0 terror. Now we also set up our initial map. In this case, we start in the Quanacht Farmhold. You'll see that we have other places orthogonally adjacent. That's because they have these little arrows that tell you what's next to them. Now, technically, we have this giant menhir statue on the farmhold. The basic theme here are sort of a twist on the classic King Arthur tales. Arthur and his knights and Merlin came to this alien land. And there's this horrific, word force, basically this, mist of death that covers the whole land, and only these statues can push it back. So you've got one at your farmhold, but these miniatures are huge and really unwieldy. So what I'm doing instead is using these little dials go inside of the miniatures. And you'll see the sun drop effect actually kind of makes it harder to read the numbers. But here we're starting on a 7, and this is going to rotate each turn until the statue goes away, and we are at the mercy of the word. So let's not try to let that happen. Now, locations will have a few consistent things. They have a name, they have a number, which goes into the exploration journal, because again, this has sort of a choose your own adventure exploration aspect to it. You'll have some icons generally. This one means that you can dream at this location. Sometimes you get hints or have other things happen. On the Quanacht Freehold, you can see you also have a menhir icon, which means you can have one of the statues here, and a green icon that means it's a settlement, so you can do some special things there or use actions like Beor's smithing. Most locations will also have an ability you can use, like there's a smith here that you can pay wealth to get craftable items and get weapons and that kind of thing. And some will also have immediate effects, like whenever you enter here, you're going to have a gray encounter fight. I should mention that each character also has a unique deck of combat cards and diplomacy cards, and also a unique deck of upgradable combat cards and diplomacy cards, so you're going to see a lot of differences in your characters as you move along. Now, there are some other event steps. They do have you set up the Chapter 1 event cards. In this case, there's 6, and they go down in numerical order from 1 to 6. And they also generally tell you how to build the encounter decks. There's 4 colors of different types of encounters. In this case, because we're playing with 2 to 4 heroes, we will have both the level 1 and level 2 encounters in there. If we were a solo player, we would have much easier, only level 1. So we begin each chapter by flipping up the top card that is going to give us our quest for this chapter. The time is short. The guardian menhir that has been protecting your town since the ancient days is about to go dark. Rumor has it that there is a secret druidic ritual that may help you rekindle the menhirs. You must explore the locations surrounding Quanok to find it. So we need to save our statue so we can save all the people in our town. We have to find the menhir rites that will let us rekindle these things. And also, a big thing is you can't explore beyond one space, including diagonals, from an active menhir. So right now we are limited to the 9 3x3 grid of locations that we'll see as we explore these other places. So we need to rekindle the menhirs to also go further in the world as well. And you do have some hints. They're going to say, return to Quanok to dream, but we'll dream somewhere else. I don't need to show you that because, again, I'm going to try to give you a little taste of everything in the game. So this stays out, and we're going to get into our first day. Let's see how the game is played. So we begin with the start of day phase. First, we remove expired menhirs, ones that have had their dial, their little coin, run down completely. And any locations that are now out of range get discarded because, again, the menhirs and their active stuff will push back the word and actually allow you to explore more of the world. Then we reduce all time and menhir dials. So in this case, we're going to tick down to 6, which means time is running out. Next, we reveal the top event card. So every time you play Chapter 1, this is going to be the first real event card you draw, but you'll see it changes things up a bit. Homeless vagabonds roam the roads and trails. Many hail from fishing villages further west, where the last menhirs went dark weeks ago. Though malformed and sick, they're the lucky ones. Their tales chill you to the bone. Is this the fate that awaits your land? All right, so we can choose to help the refugees or not. If we spend 1 wealth or 1 food, we'll gain 1 rep and 1 experience. Experience will level you up. Reputation will often be checked by encounters and things and could be good or bad for you. So Beer's got a fair bit of food, so he'll go for the reputation and experience. Maggot is much less wealthy, but we'll hope his magic will feed him, and we'll also go for the reputation and experience, because as we'll see in a moment, it's not too hard to get some food. All right, so now, here's the part I was mentioning. Place 5, -1 per player, so that'll be 3 additional random events on top of the event deck, then discard this card. So that's a key thing in here. The cards are often going to add random events. So even though some things will happen eventually, these become like another timer, just like the dial on the menhir. We need to get things finished before the other events can occur. So here we've got 3 random events going on top of the deck. These will generally be pretty minor weather effects, but some of them can be a little bit nastier. Next, we would move guardians, if there were any. Those are roaming encounters that persist on the board. And then finally, we would have to pick our active items and secret cards, because you can only have like 1 weapon equipped or 1 armor equipped, but we have nothing right now, so don't have to worry about that. Okay, now we're going to get to the meat of the game, which is the day phase. And basically, we're going to each get to play actions using our energy until we want to stop or until we run out. Now, the main actions are pretty straightforward. For 1, energy you can explore, which means you can look at your location, either flipping the card or reading the entry in the encounter book to see what happens. You can travel for 1, which lets you move 1 space orthogonally. You can take a location action, as mentioned. Most of the locations have little actions you can do. For free, anytime you're in a menhir space, you can inspect them in here and see what is required to rekindle this one, but I'll help you out for free. You cannot possibly rekindle this one right now until you find some other things. You can use your character's special ability. Like we said, Maggot can get magic and Beor can make items. And then finally, you can pass and end your day. So pretty small number of options there, pretty straightforward. Now, a big thing in the game is the idea of parties. So I could just have Beor walk off to the Warrior Fair and Maggot walk off to the Forlorn Swords, and they could explore on their own and see what adventures they have, although they would be at the mercy of potentially nasty customers. Or they can choose to go together. And whenever they do that, they can split the cost however they like. So if they wanted to both walk to the Charred Conclave, that would be 2 energy, 1 for each of them. But Beor could basically drag Maggot with him and pay 2 of that energy, and Maggot could pay 0. They can also freely share their resources when they do that. They can pay for each other's magic costs, so Maggot could, in a fight, use magic to help out Beor. The only thing they can't do is, if we use one of their special actions, like Beor makes an item, Maggot can still pay for part of the cost, but Beor has to pay at least 1 of the energy required, so he can't, Maggot just can't make items all by himself. Now, zooming in a bit on our main options, so we've got our farmhold. We can spend an energy here to get a rep by helping out the townspeople. We can go over to the Charred Enclave, where again we'll have a fight automatically, which isn't always a terrible thing. We can go over to the Warrior Fair, where we can spend 4 energy to train and get experience, but it'll hurt us a little bit, and 4 energy is basically our entire allotment for the day usually, so that's not going to be too effective in helping us quickly save our town. If we go up north to the Hunter's Grove, we can gather food for 2 energy, get 2 food, and fight a green encounter, which tends to give you more food because they tend to be things like rabbits and dogs and things that we can eat. And if we go down to the Forlorn Swords, we can pay wealth to get craftable items. But hey, in this case, let's go ahead and explore our Quinacht farmhold for 1 energy and see what it has to offer. We could have Maggot and Bior explore together, but hey, I think in this case, they're probably pretty safe at their own hometown, so let's have them each separately explore. So to show you how energy works real quick, it counts down, and you can go all the way down to 0, but do note that 1 and 0 are red and have the word exhausted next to them. So when you go down there, you become exhausted. Now what this means is you only go up 4 energy at the end of the turn. Usually you go all the way up to your max, which you'll note that actually isn't really a difference because 2 to 6 is an increase of 4, 1 to 5 is an increase of 4, and 0 to 4 is an increase of 4. So you're going to have 4 more energy each round regardless. But exhaustion can have other effects, such as for Bior, his weakness is he has a festering wound, so every time he becomes exhausted, he loses 1 health. So Maggot might not care as much, but Bior definitely wants to stop at that 2 side and only use 4 energy per day. Maggot, on the other hand, has a negative at the end of each day. He tosses a dial, and if he gets a skull, he reads a nightmare instead of a nice little dream. Now, the thing is, dreams tend to help you. Nightmares are a little bit freakier. Most people only see them when they're going insane, when their terror is really high. But Maggot, I guess he's going a little bit insane all the time. So let's do Bior's exploration first. He'll spend 1 energy. And you can flip the card over. It has a nice little illustration and gives you some details as well as activating the men here. But honestly, rather than going to all that trouble, I prefer to just use the exploration journal, which has the exact same text repeated. A deep feeling of loss fills everything in Quinacht, from dilapidated farms to the sunken eyes of those who remain in town. The men here in the market is all but extinguished, and everyone brave or resourceful enough has left to find a solution. So part of the theme I didn't tell you about, but this comes out in the letters, is that all the leaders of your town, the greatest people, your mentors, have all gone to try to save the town and have vanished. So you're kind of trying to follow in their footsteps as one of your main quests. So you'll see there are often a ton of if-then statements that'll force you to do things. So if we had the Winds of Wordness, we would change the location. If we had a secret card, we'd go here. If we had the Hunter's Mark, we'd go there. But generally, after you get through all that stuff, you'll have the actual options that are available to you normally. But there are a lot of things to explore with the system as you come back to locations after things happen. So Bior can either visit the families of the champions from the first expeditions, the one who left. I can ask the townspeople to help me prepare. I can rest in my house. Or I can wander the alleys, but I can't actually because there is no men here. That's only if there's no men here there. So let's see. It seems like one of us is going to visit the families. One of us is going to ask the townsfolk. Let's have Bior visit the families, I think. This long winter, nearly everyone has lost a friend or a family member. First to hunger, then to disease. Finally, the 5 remaining pillars of the community, the only heroes this land has ever known, suddenly left. Now, when you look into the distant eyes of the last remaining residents, you realize they want to forget. So they can loosen their tongues with mead. There's an old custom, a late-night wake for those who wandered far from their home. Holding it for everyone who left with the expedition won't be cheap, though. So pay 1 wealth or 1 food and go to verse 2. If I had 1 empathy attribute, which neither of my characters do, I could just do it for free. Or I can leave, and I could make another choice, so I wouldn't actually lose my exploration. But I have a good feeling we're about to go hunting, so let's feed the townspeople. It takes a while to break the silence of the grief-stricken people, but when you do, stories of separation and departures flood you like torrential rain. You try to remember every detail, the color of a palfrey horse the village priestess Niante rode, the ornament on the hogberk that young Lord Yvain wore, the strange drinking horn a fear the smith used to lug around, the birthmeck of Fael, the master huntsman, the embroidered cape of Albert, the seasoned traveler who'd seen all parts of the island. Who knows what details can help you down the road. Now comes a pretty important part of the narrative of the game. Gain part 1 of the Fate of the Expedition status. So you'll see you have this big sheet of all these statuses, and a lot of them have multiple boxes. So I can just mark off Fate of the Expedition, 1, and it says if I get all 1 through 8, I get to read, all 1 through 8, not 9, I get to read a special verse. But this also will be checked by a ton of other things in the game. So because I knew that this person was riding that horse, or this person had that drinking horn, maybe in another encounter it'll ask me if I have Fate of the Expedition level 1, and if I do, then something cool will open up to me. Alright, meanwhile, Maggot, a little bit more selfish, will ask the townspeople for help. Though they have little left, they share with you their last remaining supplies. Somehow this seems unworthy of a hero, but since all the true heroes were lost, who will dare to question your methods? Okay, if you have at least one rep, I do. Thankfully, Maggot fed those people. And you don't have the Scrounger status. Each party member gains 2 food. Oh, each party member. Darn, I should have brought the Smith with me. Then gain 1 random item in the Scrounger status. So you'll note, by the way, it said each party member and then gains. This 1 random item is only once, no matter how many people were with us. But if we had all come, we would have each gotten food. So Maggot will get up to 3 food. He can share that with Bior if they get into a party later. And we do get an item, Ritual Chalk. When activating men here, reduce the activation cost by 1 and 1 of one other resource. Then throw a dial. On a grail, nothing happens. On a skull, discard this item. So you have a lot of those where you flick one of these little coins and get a 50-50 shot of something good or bad happening. So that seems nice and appropriate. Some Ritual Chalk for our resident druid, although we need to find out how to rekindle the menhirs before we start using chalk on them. Alright, so with that location pretty much exhausted of options, we could help for some rep, but we already took those guys' food. We don't need them. Let's head up as a party to the Hunter's Grove. So that would be 1 energy for each character. They could pool it and have one person pay both, but in this case I think it makes sense to split it and each have 1 energy spent. And when you move, you immediately reveal locations that are connected by arrows. We have 106 and 107, as long as they are only 1 away from an active menhir, and that includes diagonals. So on the left, we're going to get the Forge Dweller Mounds, where we can treasure hunt for wealth and even something special. And here we're going to get Whitening, another settlement. The red means it's an unfriendly settlement, so every time we go here, we're going to have to do a blue encounter, which could hurt us, but that's a diplomacy encounter, so usually it's not as much about injury. And we can trade with the townsfolk here, food for wealth, so here we got a little wealth and food pipeline right here. All right, we like this party idea, so let's split the cost of the locations 2 energy to gather food. We're going to gain 2 food and draw a green encounter, so we'll get to see how combat works in the game. So both Bior and Maggot are down to 3 energy, and we'll have Bior take the 2 food, so now they both have 3, and you only spend 1 food per day, so we're in a pretty good place with that. And now we're going to see our first encounter and how the combat system works. So here we got a big frenzied boar in its panic-fueled attempt to run away from wordness. It will charge anything that looks like an obstacle. So this is probably the most complicated mechanical part of the game, but it is pretty cool, so let's get into it. So first you have the number of cubes in the combat pool needed to defeat the frenzied boar. As we each play cards, we'll be adding cubes to the left of the boar, and that will slowly determine how he's going to be killed. Then we have these keys that can lock into cards in your hand. Let's show you what I mean by that. Bior is going to draw 3 cards, because you each draw 3 cards at the beginning of combat. He's got Attack, Crippling Strike, and Risky Attack. So when you do combat, you check cards that interlock with their keys, and they only apply if you have the appropriate attribute. Now, Bior has 1 in every physical attribute, and he actually has 2 in aggression, so he could go ahead and do anything that locks with any of these 3, or even this one on attack, he could lock with on a future card. So for each one that locks, you gain the benefit when you play the card. So here I would put 1 cube to the left of the creature to show that I have 1 in my combat pool, and again, when I get 6, he's defeated. And then I'd count down, and here I'd get 1 times another red cube, so I would have 2 ready to fight the Frenzied Boar. And cards will often have special abilities as well. So this one says, during the enemy attack phase, I suffer 1 extra damage because I left myself open. Then it also says, put a time token on this. A lot of cards will have this. And at the beginning of the next combat turn, which will usually be for a different hero, they get to resolve this ability, remove the token, and draw 1 card. Now, cards will be placed over top of each other, always just having their left side showing, except for a few cards that do have powers in the middle. So when you cover up something, you get rid of all those effects. So if I covered up attack, I would not be suffering extra damage anymore, but I also would get rid of the token and couldn't draw an extra card. Now, the first card you play is always free, but additional cards here, I've gotten another card to illustrate this, need to have a key that connects to this little golden card icon, the bonus action icon. So I can play more cards on my turn, but they have to each connect, again, with attributes that I actually have to the previous card. And that'll let me kind of chain together and do extra things on a given turn. Now, after I've done all the cards that I want to play, I'll then resolve the enemy's attack. So I check the number of cubes in my combat pool, and I resolve the indicated ability. So here, he would attack me for 3 damage, and because of my attack ability, it would actually be 4 damage. Ouch. But one thing I forgot to say is that enemies will have traits as well, and the Frenzied Boar has the Rush trait, which means that whichever character I pick to take the first turn is going to only draw 1 card instead of 3. So he's going to be quite at the mercy of this monster. So let's get into it. Bior does have the most life, so he'll be the first attacker and draw his 1 card. And means he pretty much has to play this. But this actually isn't a terrible one because this icon, the only one that matches up, is going to give him 1 card draw. That's what the green icon is, so I get to draw 1 card. And the ability in play says, gain 1 red combat token for every point of damage received. So the boar will hit me, but he'll also give me a red combat token. Although, unfortunately, I'm going to lose it right away because on the 0 to 1 level, he does 1 damage, and then I lose a token afterwards. So I'll gain 1, and then I'll lose it. So really all I'm doing is drawing a free combat card here, and that's about what I can do. But I can play it immediately, and I want to. Let me show you why. This one does match up with the bonus action icon, even though nothing else matches. But now look what I've left for Maggot, who, remember, does not have as many combat icons as I do. Now Maggot will be able to link up with a key on any of these 3, and this is the magic link, which you can use by spending a magic, so Maggot's going to be able to do that potentially as well. So I've now set my partner up for a much better attack, because Maggot does not have double aggression or double courage, so neither of these keys would have been of any use to him. Alright, now I suffer my effect, which is just 1 damage, so it goes down like that. And by the way, to mark which characters have acted, you can put a little time token on them, because Maggot will have to take a turn, and then we'll go to a sort of end of combat round effect, and then we'll go back, and we can pick which of them goes first again. Now, the boar also has a lose 1 cube, and there is a negative when you have no cubes in your pool. You have to discard a card from your hand, or if you have none, you have to discard a card from the top of your deck, because when your deck runs out fully, you have to retreat from the battle if you haven't defeated the enemy yet. Okay, so next we go to Maggot, who actually gets a full hand of 3 cards, and he would have been looking at these the entire time, but I'm just drawing them now. So he has some cards similar to Bior, like Attack they both had, but he also has sometimes some more magical cards, although I didn't really draw any of them. Now you can, by the way, mulligan, so I could get rid of these cards and draw 2 cards, and then I could do it again and draw 1 card, and then you have to stop, so you can kind of lower the number of cards you have if you want to get a different set. So remember that Maggot has aggression, has courage, but does not have practicality, so I can only link up with these 2, or with magic, but again, to link up with magic, I have to spend 1 magic, so I can't use anything that comes from these little snake icons, or anything that comes from a double icon, because I don't have 2 aggression. So as an example, if I did charge, I would get 2 red cubes, 1 from the matchup with aggression, 1 from the matchup with this free spot down here. But I would take an extra damage, and I would draw a card later, potentially. So that means that charge is pretty much identical to attack, except charge has a free action icon, and attack does not. Hold guard lets you choose the enemy's attack, which is great when they have a ton of damage on them and will really hurt you, but I don't really need it right now. So let's try doing attack first. So they'll get me 1, 2 cubes. I go right here to the left, and if this card is still on top, I'll take an extra damage, but I get to draw a card if the time expires. There we go. But I am going to play a charge right on top of it. So because I have the free action icon linking up there with a attribute I have, I'm okay. But sadly, this actually isn't that great, because I don't have double aggression, so all I'm getting is just the 1 extra red cube here. Now, I did lose the time token from the last card, but I put it on charge instead, so whoever goes first next turn will get to draw a card, but I am going to take 1 extra damage. The board, when he has 3 cubes, deals 1, so I'll take 2 damage, and gets rid of 2 of the red cubes. I barely made any progress. So Maggot goes down 2 life, not so great. Now, at the end of each player's turn, you check readiness and see if you've defeated the guy, and then you check it again here. But now we go to end our turn. If we had more than 3 cards in hand, we don't. We discard down to 3. Then we each get to draw 1 card, and then we get to pick who the active character is again. So Maggot's going to add, there we go, a magic spell. Hex, so this will do 2 red cubes if I pay a magic when I match up the magic effect, and give a ×2 effect down here. That's pretty great. Oh, and gives a bonus from fighting a purple encounter, won't matter. And then Bior's only has a single card. Defend. Oh, prevent 2 damage and let me draw a card, but that's not going to help us actually defeat this guy. All right, so now we have to pick the active character. And charge actually doesn't have a magic effect, so I don't really want to use Maggot yet. And also, I'd rather Bior get the free card draw from this because he's down to only 1 card. So after I pick the active character, I resolve delayed ability, so I discard the time token and draw a card for Bior. And here's a pretty powerful attack one, Throw. I can link it up to defend if I want to. And they both have magic effects, that's good. Now this would let me, when I played it, that's what this little icon here means. If I had a weapon or shield, I could flip it over to gain some extra red, but sadly I don't. So let's see, how would this work out? If I played this right here, I would link up to only the 1 times, and that would be terrible, so I'd get only a single red cube. But if I instead played the defend first, I would get nothing from it. But then if I played the throw, I would link up and be able to play it from the previous effect. So I get 1 red. I don't have any magic to get another one, but then I get 2 more reds. So that would give us 3 red, 4 total. Then again, I'm not sure that's necessary because the defend is going to work out really well for Maggot, and I'll stop myself from taking any damage and give Maggot a free card draw. So let's go with that. So I place a time token here to remind me about the draw effect, and then we check. He's only got 1 cube right now, and we lose it, but his 1 damage is prevented by the defend effect. So we're back at square one, sort of, but with more cards. All right, so Maggot comes in now. He does get to draw that 1 card. Here we got War Magic. That sounds pretty awesome. So I gain a terror when I play it, but then after time goes, I do 2 bonus cubes. That's great. Let's see. It looks like Hex is the way to start here. So look at this. Look at this. I'm going to get to draw a card because I do link up. Oh, no, that's right. I don't have Practicality, so I don't get to draw that. But if I spend 1 magic, I'll get 2 red cubes. Because, again, every time you link up magic, you have to spend 1. But, you know, Maggot can get more of them just by spending energy, so that seems okay. And I also get 2 times a red cube, so I'm going to get 4 total from this action. This guy's only 2 away from defeat. And then I would gain a 1 for each of my magic abilities out here. I linked up magic keys, which would be, looks like 2 of them. Oh no, actually only 1. If I was fighting a purple encounter, but I'm not. Let's see. Oh, if I spend another magic to link this up, I'll immediately get 2 more reds and defeat this guy before he gets to respond. So let's do that. So it does use up all of my magic, but I defeat this guy before he hurts us too much more. So at the end of combat, all the cards go back, and you can see from the letters, in this case, Maggot gets the B's, and Bior gets the U's. And the whole deck gets reshuffled at the end of combat, so you'll be able to get some random results next time you play. Now, monsters will have loot and reward sometimes. Loot is just a set amount that's shared, but reward goes to everybody. So here we get 3 food from cutting up this boar. So we'll put Bior up to 4. And Maggot, who is now sadly magic-less, is up to 5. And final step of combat, whenever you defeat an encounter, it goes to the bottom of its matching deck. Well, that was quite an exciting time. We each have 1 energy left before we would want to rest, especially so Bior doesn't take the free wound. So we could hunt again, but I showed you combat and you kind of get the sense of how that works. So let's instead go ahead and explore. And this time this location could be dangerous, so let's explore as a party. It's still here as always. Enormous empty eye sockets start to watch you as soon as you descend into the moss-covered basin. The horns, as wide as a longship, are now a home for countless birds. Inside the vast skull lies a quiet, candlelit shrine with several straw mattresses strewn about. The local hunters call this ancient skull the Stag Father and lay charms and offerings around it. The legends say the Stag Father takes the dreamers away to join him on a great hunt. So if we don't have the tracker status, we don't. Go to verse 3. We don't have any choice to do anything else. A trail of blood and broken branches is not unusual in the sacred forest of the Great Hunter. You almost pass it without noticing when an imprint of a bloodied hand on a white birch's bark catches your attention. This prey certainly wasn't an animal. So we gain the tracker status, which, again, as you noted, just means that we're not going to have this encounter next time. We can either follow the trail or carry on. You know what? I'm going to carry on and show you something else, because I know what happens with that, and it's kind of a cool story moment. You can see it for yourself. So we can sleep in the shrine, or dig through the offerings, or deface the shrine and leave a message, but only if we have something else which we don't have. So, you know, let's go ahead and dig through the offerings. We are some scroungers here. Clearly, if they left their coins here, they did not want them anymore, right? If you don't have part 5 of the pillager status, gain 1 wealth. Now that's just for both of us. We don't each gain 1. Then we gain part 5 of the pillager status, and then each of us with 1 or more spirituality gains 1 terror. So Maggot's feeling a little bit scared about angering the gods here. So we'll give Maggot the wealth since he's poor, but he is freaked out, whereas Bior, he doesn't believe in that kind of stuff. So we are now both at 2 energy, which means if we stop now, we'll get to go up to 6. If we go into exhausted, we'll get to 5 or 4. And for Bior, he'll take a wound. So let's just stop here and rest. So we get to the end of the day. First, if we can consume 1 food, we heal 1 life and lose 1 terror automatically. If we didn't have food, things would not be so nice. So Bior will eat. He doesn't have any terror to lose, but he is back up to full health. And Maggot will also eat. I guess he wasn't scared of the gods for too long, and he's almost up to full health. So next, each character, unless they're exhausted, goes up to full energy, so we'll both have 6 for next round. Next, we can spend our experience to advance. You need 2 to add new cards to your combat or diplomacy decks, so we don't have that. And then you need 2 times the new amount of cubes you would have in the pair of stats to both sides to advance one of these. So if I wanted to raise up my empathy, I currently have 1 cube, so 1 more would be 2 cubes, then I gotta multiply that by 2. So that'd be 4 experience to level up either empathy or aggression, because these are a pair of attributes. All right, now we get to read the dream. Don't forget, poor Maggot, he's a little crazy. I'm going to flip this, and if he gets a skull, then he will have a nightmare instead. And, of course, he does. So don't forget, this only matters if your location has a dreaming icon. Some places just don't have any wisdom to be imparted. Oh, interesting. So dream and nightmare are identical at this location. That I've not seen before. Okay, if you have part 2, we don't, so let's move on. You drift off under this ochre-painted constellation into a restless sleep where you chase a young dove in the hills just outside Connacht. You wake early in the morning in a cold sweat with several fresh cuts. The taste of blood fills your mouth. Lovely. Beside you, raw pieces of meat lay carefully wrapped in leaves. Well, maybe that giant skull stagfather does take us hunting with him. So if we don't have the Hunter's Mark status, each character in this location gains 2 food, then gains the Hunter's Mark. So we are bursting at the seams with food, but maybe it's not great to go hunting with a god who you've just angered and stolen from? I don't know. And so now we go back to our start of day. Our men here is weakening again. It's down to 5. We're going to draw our first random event. Oh my gosh, a howling gale. When resting, gain no health and lose no terror. The hellish wailing and moaning won't let anyone rest this night. Okay. Yeah, not a great time to be wandering around. All right, so like I said, I wanted to keep this video pretty quick, so I'm going to go over to Whitening, show you how a blue diplomacy encounter works, and I'll stop there, keeping most of the awesome story of this game hidden for you to experience if you play it yourself. So both these characters will travel as a party, spending 1 energy each to get to Whitening. And don't forget that even though there is 117 adjacent to this, we will not see that because it is too far away from an active man here. So it says draw a blue encounter when we enter this location. Let's see who it is. So in this case, it's the law of hospitality. So not really an obstacle, but more of an opportunity. People here are not very friendly, but there are old customs and laws you could invoke. So diplomacy mostly uses the exact same mechanics as combat. You'll see that you still have the keys that you're linking up. But in this case, you're moving a little token up and down a track. If we get all the way to the top, then we do an affinity check, and if there's multiple stages, like if there were more Roman numerals here, we would advance to the next stage. Or in this case, if there's only 1 stage, we succeed. Whereas if it goes all the way down to the bottom, we suffer the failure effect. Let's have Maggot go first. He's the one who's better at diplomacy. He has everything except for the empathy icon, whereas Bior is missing everything except for just caution, so he can barely chain anything. Now here, instead of getting red cubes, you get arrows up, which will just, as you might expect, move your cube up, and the enemies will respond when they attack with whatever their little icon here is, which is an arrow down, and the little red icon means you throw away the rightmost card, and a lot of the diplomacy ones have negatives for that, so if my holy verse gets thrown away, I gain a terror that they are, attacking the scriptures right in front of me. Also, a common thing is this little Celtic knot icon right here, and that will depend on the specific diplomacy challenge. Here it's very basic, it just goes up 1, just like a regular up arrow, but sometimes it'll be more complicated than that. Now, Holy Verse is a nice starter for a few reasons. So you'll notice that nothing really works here for Maggot. He doesn't have empathy, so all he can chain with is a 1. So he'll get the +1, but also note that when I play this, before I resolve any of that, if the affinity is not green, and it's not, right now it's gray, and it would also apply if it was a red, I get a free up movement immediately. And then I also get the up from that, so I'm already only 1 away from completing this diplomacy challenge in just a moment. And, yeah, let's just finish it off. I'm gonna intimidate these guys and give me food with my magic. I will blast your face unless you feed my belly. I've got free action connections for either caution or double spirituality. Maggot has both of those things. I could spend 1 to get +1 up from my magic. Doesn't really seem worth it. Oh, I do gain some terror, so with the storm I won't be healing that tonight. But my 1 more up immediately solves this. This was a super, super easy one. All right, so here we look at the reward, which is 2 food. Now, it's a reward, not loot, which means every participating party member gets it separately. So we just got 2 more food. Good God, these guys are going to be fed forever. So Maggot gains a bit of terror, And he gets 2 food, and they do have some nice purple cubes that can count as 5, so there we go. Now I have 8 food total. And we do the same with Bior. I mean, Maggot just took care of business there. Bior just kind of hung around and got to eat for free. Now, we do have a nice action here for us. For 1 energy, trade, pay 1 food to gain 1 wealth. We have a ton of food, so we could certainly get some money. But first, let's see what this place has to offer. Let's have an encounter at 107, and sure, we'll go as a party and both spend 1. The hole is here, as always, gaping right in the middle of whitening. The white lichen that gave this town its new name seems to grow out of it. It covers the walls of the nearby halls with a thick coat. Only close up can one discover it is, in fact, a layer of small, sparkling crystals, like sea salt on the wooden posts of a pier. As you inspect it, several people watch you suspiciously. Okay, if you have the... Nope, we don't have any of that. We don't have any of that. If you're playing Eiley, nope. Okay, so we'll just go right to verse 7. And if you have more than 2 rep, go to verse 12. Otherwise, go to verse 11. Now, this is an individually checked thing. You check the highest level that somebody has in your group whenever it asks for one of these things. Both of us have 1 rep right now, so neither of us would even have been able to do this if we had helped the townsfolk last turn. So we're going to verse 12. Uh-oh, I think this unhappy Hamlet is going to be very angry with us. Some sickly whitening men block your way. "You look like trouble," one says. "And we have enough of that here. Leave." If you have 1 or fewer aggression, you calm your nerves, breathe deeply, and bring things down a notch. Go to verse 12. Ha! Unfortunately, I did choose to journey here with Bior, who has 2 aggression, and again, you have to take the highest of your stat, in this case for a negative thing. The blood pounds in your veins. "They will not tell you what to do." Go to verse 8. If you were hoping for a battle, the sickly and malnourished Whiteners were probably a disappointment. It's not a real fight. Their bones snap like twigs and their skin parts under the softest blows. Soon your opponents wriggle in the mud, bleeding, crying from pain, and cradling broken limbs. Horrified children run out of the shacks to protect their mothers and fathers. It's hard not to feel bad about yourself. Good Lord, what kind of people am I? So we each lose 1 reputation, our only 1, darn it. Each party member who has at least 1 empathy gains 2 terror. Well, we don't. My guys are cruel jerks, so yeah, expiration ends. Wow. Okay. So, you know what, Bior, why don't you just hang out over here, and I think Maggot's gonna explore again by himself with a cooler head and try to talk to somebody that's not bleeding or dying. So Maggot's gonna spend an energy down with his, lower aggression here. So we still go to verse 11, and this time we get to go to verse 12. Yay. So we can ask people to help you on your journey, gather the white lichen, inquire about acolyte Brrrr. Sorry. Requires part 1 of the no, don't have that, or leave. I mean, I'm a creepy wizard. I think gathering some lichen, or wasn't it actually gems they said? I don't know, but let's do that. People watch horrified, that seems bad, as you pluck the lichen with your own hands and stuff it into a small deerskin pouch. Sometime later, you open the bag only to find that some of the lichen is gone. For whatever reason, it seems to slowly disappear once removed from its main body. Gain secret card 32. Okay, so these are the secret deck cards. You see that these are always numbered in order, and what am I looking for? 32. So yeah, they'll have some fun things to reveal. Pale crystals. Reduce the dial on this card by 1 at the start of each day. Discard this secret when the dial runs out. This says place a time token and a dial on the secret and set them to 3. I reduce it by 1. Once the dial runs out, discard the secret card. I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it right now. Clearly there's somewhere this would go, but I don't know what it's for. But here we go. Here we go. These things do spin super nicely. So we got our little 3 marker to tell us when my weird white crystal is going to disappear. And let's see. Bior has 2 more energy before he has to rest. Maggot has 1. I guess Bior will even things up by getting 1 wealth for 1 of his food. And we got 1 energy left. I think I'm going to call the video here, but hey, you want to see 1 more fight, don't you? Sure you do. Let's move on down to the Charred Conclave and draw a gray encounter. Although first we do add the Island Asylum right here, where you can get healed. Nice. Don't let his rusty spear and beer belly fool you. He's seen his share of bloodshed. So he's got Rush again. We're going to have one of us start with only 1 card. Oh, by the way, I didn't talk about opportunities. You can run away for 1 energy basically anytime you want, and then they do their opportunity. Some of them will hurt you, but in this case, he just runs away too if you give him the chance. Let's see. Should have Bior go first again, because he's got 2 things he can link to, even though he will only have 1 card. So let's see what Bior draws. Ignore pain. Gain 1 for each point of damage received. I mean, okay. Once again, I'm going to kind of set up Maggot for nothing good. Let's see what Maggot draws. Risky attack, distraction, defend. Although the only thing is, if we don't play a card, then they resolve their opportunity automatically, so the guy will just automatically get away. Although, is that the worst thing in the world? I guess we could just let him run. But no, you want to see a fight, so okay, we're going to ignore pain. So Bior gets to draw a card. Oh, another reposition. This seems familiar. So let's see, right now I would gain 1 from his attack, but then I would lose 2. But again, let's set up our friend for something more. There we go. And that's all Bior can do. He's going to take 1 damage and have to discard 2 cards from the top of his deck because we don't have any cubes yet. All right, now Maggot gets his go. So let's see, risky attack. What would that do? Oh, he does not have the snake icon, so he would just do 1 red. He'd get to draw a card, and then he'd get to toss a dial. He might deal extra damage. He might take a ton of damage. Yuck. I could just play defend, although it seems like a waste of those nice icons in reposition. But I guess it would set up Bior for a nice attack and give him an extra card draw. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. Save the rest of these. So the guy does not hurt us at all, but we do have to discard 2 cards for Maggot because we don't have any cubes. But we will give a free card draw, I guess, to Bior in the next round. So speaking of, both characters get to draw 1. Bior gets an attack, and we get a hold guard for Maggot. We'll have Bior go first, discard that, and draw a second card. Final blow. Oh man, that would be 4 attack in 1 go, but of course you lose a lot of red and take extra damage if it's not actually the final blow, if you leave the guy alive to come back and attack you, so I'm not going to play that. But attack is decent. We got 3 cubes, and I'll set up Maggot to draw a card. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, crud. Could I play the final blow off of this? Yes, I could, because I do have a little pig icon. So that would be 3 from the attack, 4, 5, because I have double aggression, 6 from the final blow. Boom! Take that, clansmen. You are defeated after some slow playing. And we do get some loot, 2 wealth. That's loot, so we have to divide it up. So we'll give each of our guys 1. All right, with that, it looks like it's about time to rest again. So we will eat some food, heal some... Oh, wait, no, that's right. We are in that storm, so we don't heal any damage or heal any terror. All right, so let's sign off this quick playthrough with a bit of a dream. Let's see what happens at the Charred Conclave. Oh, wait, this time we do have separate ones. Let's see what happens to the Maggot. Of course, it's a skull. So, Bior, in your dream, you flee from a rolling wave of darkness slowly consuming the land behind you. You try to pick your paths carefully, making sure to gather ample provisions along the way and to rekindle any men here you find. After a while, the wave catches up with you and swallows you whole. You come back to the start of the dream. This time you flee as fast as your legs can carry you, but hunger, dead ends, and the beasts of this land quickly end your life. Hint, to survive, you need to move fast, but not at the cost of your resources or survival. Okay, now what happens to our friend Maggot? Your hands desperately tug at the bars of the cage, trying to pry one of them loose. Other people thrash around you in pure terror. Your lungs and mouth begin to fill with thick, oily smoke rising from those below you. Their screams no longer sound human. Finally, the flames reach your body, blistering your skin, melting your flesh. Yuck! A moment of agony and terror. And then you're back in the cage again in another place, reliving the execution once again, and again, and again, from 200 different perspectives. The dream seems to last forever and leaves you completely traumatized and shaken. Yikes. So I lose 1 health and 1 terror from my horrible experience. We'll leave Maggot. It was not a fun thing for him. Injured and a little bit terrified as we close out this playthrough. So there you go, a taste of the main mechanics from Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. Check out my review, and we will see you at the next stop.